Ukrainian officials say Russian missile and air strikes on water facilities and the thermal power station have caused widespread outages across its eastern regions around Kharkiv and in Donbas. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said Russia was attempting to deprive people of heat and light, while Kharkiv's mayor described the strikes as Russian reprisals for Kyiv's recent territorial gains.
On the edge of Khakiv city, fire crews battle ablaze at one of Ukraine's biggest power and heating plants. Flames in the night sky are the only source of light as the region is plunged into darkness.
A missile struck an infrastructure site. Transformers, which serve the city of Kharkiv, were damaged.
Ukraine says Russian missiles struck across its east and south, destroying homes, with multiple fatalities reported. Russia's military denied striking civilian targets, saying it had launched an offensive against military objects. But Kyiv says Russia is retaliating by air as its infantry loses ground. Ukrainian forces are sharing videos of their arrival in towns occupied for more than 6 months, some within kilometers of the Russian border. They say they've retaken control of strategic cities, including Izium, once a supply hub for the invading army.
The main square of Izium, the building of the local administration, is still burning. Everything around is destroyed, but it's okay. We will restore everything. Izium was, is, and will be Ukrainian.
Across the northeast, the Ukrainian flag is being unfurled, Russian symbols are being torn down, and the cries of glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes, grow louder.
Let's join DW correspondent Nick Connolly in Kyiv. Welcome, Nick. Kharkiv's mayors described these airstrikes on power grids as Russian revenge for recent Ukrainian successes. How disruptive have they been?
Well, this was quite extreme in Kharkiv yesterday. Electricity gone in most of the city. As you mentioned there, the heating plant attacked. We had images of people stuck in the metro because the electricity was gone. But it seems like they've been remarkably successful at bringing back the power. That is something that's been the kind of pattern all through this war. Ukraine's infrastructure remarkably flexible and able to respond to these challenges. But the heating is going to be the much bigger problem going into the winter. Bringing in heating from further afield as is possible with electricity is obviously not going to be realistic. And these are huge, often apartment blocks that are totally dependent on that outside heating being brought in. People don't have their own boilers, don't have their own electric heating. So seemingly a very, very cold winter ahead for the people in Kharkiv.
And we've seen the film images of Ukrainian forces apparently liberating huge swathes of territory in the northeast in recent days, almost reaching the Russian border. What are the soldiers finding in the towns that they do liberate?
They're finding a lot of dumped Russian tech, tanks, transporter vehicles, but even high-tech stuff, drones and more complicated systems, often with their manuals left and their base stations. So a lot of tech there that is going to be useful for the Ukrainian army in trying to understand how to better resist these systems. Seemingly the Russian forces, without even the time to destroy their kit, let alone take it with them. They found lots of the local residents have left for Russia, especially people who were cooperating with Russian authorities there, taking jobs in the Russian occupation authorities. They obviously scared of retribution or judicial consequences of what they've done. And we're getting sporadic reports of torture and other mistreatment of people there, especially people connected to the Ukrainian state, people who maybe were veterans of the Ukrainian army. But it's all pretty difficult to report on right now. No real systematic access for journalists. We're just working on social media and the stuff that's getting through to us here. Many of these places still don't even have mobile phone connections, so it's all pretty hazy for now, but lots of kind of scratching of heads here in Kyiv. People not really able to believe that it was possible to push the Russians back so fast over such a big area.
And a word about the nuclear reactor, the nuclear power plant that Russia occupied in Zaporizhzhia. On Sunday, the country's nuclear operator said external power had been restored in order to close down the final reactor. Is that good news?
It's good and bad news. So obviously, drawing down that last reactor means that if there is a direct hit, there is less of a threat of something going wrong, but it also makes the plant a lot more vulnerable and a lot more dependent on the outside world for its cooling to keep what is already there safe. So right now there's one connection to the Ukrainian grid. If that is lost through some kind of attack, like with the ones we've seen in Kharkiv in the last 24 hours, then they are totally dependent on diesel generators to keep everything cool and safe. And there is a lot of skepticism here that it will be possible over a long period of time to bring in enough diesel on the scale and the kind of timelines needed. So lots of people here seeing those attacks on Ukraine's electricity system also as a threat to Ukraine and the international community that the situation in Zaporizhzhia could get a lot more dangerous for the world if Russia keeps on facing these kind of losses. So a lot of worry about that here, and a lot of talk about international peacekeepers or some kind of outside intervention to prevent that Russian control of this huge power station, Europe's biggest atomic power station, from turning into something a lot more dangerous.
Okay, thank you for that, Nick. Nick Connolly in Kyiv. Well, we can look at how this is being reflected in Russia with DW correspondent Kilian Bayer. He's part of our Moscow bureau, which is currently operating from Latvia's capital, Riga. Welcome to the studio, Kilian. How's Russian media reporting these losses taking place in Ukraine?
Well, I think it's clear it's a dramatic defeat for the Russian military, especially Kupiansk and Izium were strategic railway hubs. We saw the first reports for Russians really come in through pro-Russian war bloggers on Telegram channels. There was quite some harsh criticism saying the Russian army has abandoned us. It kind of shifted then to state television. We heard in some of the talk shows, we heard people saying, oh, there's some bad stuff happening in Ukraine. We should all get together and pray for our soldiers who are fighting hordes of Ukrainian soldiers equipped with Western weapons. One of the top talk shows on prime time, I think the word "don't panic" was said about 10 times, which kind of had the opposite effect, I kind of felt. Now the narrative has shifted, and the Ministry of Defense put out this statement that there's a regrouping happening, and that seems to be kind of the way things are being portrayed. But still, there is some very surprising outspoken criticism of the way that Russia is conducting the war. Also, something that I found quite surprising is that the word war is falling more and more often on national television in Russia. This could, of course, be a slip of the tongue because people are nervous or surprised by what's happening. But maybe it's also deliberate, and maybe, the Russian public is being prepared for a mobilization, but it's really hard to say. That's just speculation.
Okay, because of course prior to this had been described as a special military operation, and this regrouping as Russian local elections have just taken place. Has the war been part of campaigning?
Well, the elections are regional, so normally regional politics don't really look into foreign policy. But of course, let me just kind of paint the stage of what was going on. These are huge elections in Russia, over 82 different regions, 31,000 different positions were up for grabs. So you have governors being elected, you have regional parliaments, and then you also have municipal elections like in Moscow. Now, the Moscow election was considered by many observers to be also kind of like a poll on the war. United Russia, which is kind of the pro-Kremlin party, kind of a basis of Putin's power, they watch carefully how people vote for them and kind of take criticism to heart. It's seen as one of the last ways you can really kind of show dissent towards the government. But so the thing is, we haven't seen really all the results come in yet from Moscow. But what we can say is that the amount of people voting has doubled. So from 2017, there was about 15% of people that voted. Now it's been 32%.
Okay, thank you for that, Kilian. Kilian Bayer in Riga.